Hello, everyone. Welcome to Maritime Conversations by Meluha Maritime. We are your hosts, Palak and Arjun, my co host, will be joining us. And together, we continue on our mission to explore India's maritime domain through perspectives rarely seen and seldom heard. The Indian Navy is considered to be the silent service amongst all her sister defense services. However, what's interesting is that amongst the silent service exists a branch that is considered to be one of the most secretive branches of the military, the operations and the secrets of which are akin to those of the special forces. Yes, we are talking about the submarine arm of the Indian Navy. And in this episode of Maritime Conversations, we will be exploring the sea from beneath its waves from the lens of a submariner. We are pleased to have Commodore Anil Jai Singh as our guest today, who's a submarine technology expert with 30 years of experience as a submariner in the Indian Navy. He has served aboard Foxtrot, Kalvari class, and Sindhu Ghosh class submarines during his career. Thank you so much for joining us today, sir. So, without wasting any more time, sir, I'll start with my first very basic question for our audience. Why are the submarines important, especially for the Indian Navy? As a layperson, what should one know?
So look, well, firstly, thank you very much for inviting me to your program. I'm really delighted to be with you and to meet both you and Arjun, since I've known both of you earlier and now meeting Kiti for the first time. So thank you very much for that. Secondly, you mentioned the Navy as a silent service. Well, the submarine arm is known as the silent arm of the silent service. So we're even more silent. That's how we are known as. But coming to your question, uh, why are submarines important? Submarines are important because they now form more or less the only real cutting edge offensive capability of every navy, mainly because of the stealth they bring to the maritime domain. The surface of the sea has become very transparent. With very advanced surveillance technologies, aircraft in the air, satellites in space, UAVs flying around. It's only the and of course radars with increasing ranges, etc. It's only the underwater domain which still remains largely opaque, and so one really never knows where a submarine is when it is underwater, unless of course there's reason to sort of detect it and do whatever. So that's why, firstly, that is the USP of the submarine. Its stealth and its ability to conceal itself. Then, of course, every submarine is very well armed. Now you have conventional submarines also with land attack missiles and heavyweight torpedoes. One heavyweight torpedo can break up a big ship of a destroyer size into half. That's the sort of lethal firepower a submarine has. Thirdly, it does a lot of other missions besides just prosecuting ships and other submarines. It's an excellent platform for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, as we call it, as ISR is called. Particularly in shallow littoral waters, where you don't want your presence to be known, but you want to sort of to surveil the enemy. Uh, the submarine makes a very effective platform for that. Then we also do clandestine missions. So there are many missions and roles the submarine can be used for. It can stalk a surface force for days on end. So there are many things the submarine can do. But I think the main USP is the fact that it carries a lot of firepower and it can remain undetected, silent, concealed in the depths of the oceans, where people really haven't been able to fathom much of for all these years, despite submarines having been a part of warfare now for almost 110 years now, 115 years.
Right.
So I would think those were the that's the main that's why submarine is important. From an Indian perspective, submarines are very important because we have a very large maritime domain, and we have two neighbors who are perpetually sniping at our heels and making all kinds of threats. So we have to have full spectrum capability for our Indian Navy, and submarines are an integral part of any blue water navy in which power projection is one of the roles. So from that perspective, India, that's why, has all three types. We have SSBNs, we'll have SSNs, and we have SSKs, which I could probably explain a little bit later. But fundamentally, it is about stealth, concealment, and firepower that a submarine brings to the table in naval warfare.
Well, absolutely. In fact, I'm sure Arjun can take this forward, but it's been very interesting to know. I mean, for a person who doesn't know much about submarines, that's quite a lot of information. Arjun, maybe you can take this forward.
Sure, Palak. Thank you very much. Sir, it is fascinating to know the varied roles a submarine can do in modern warfare. And rightfully so, you mentioned something called as clandestine operations. And when you did mention about clandestine operations, the first thing that comes to our mind is special forces, right? And what is special about any special force for that matter is that they're an elite group of people, right? Now, from what we understand, submariners are also considered to be an elite group of people. Why is that so? Why are submariners considered to be, elite among the soldier community, sir?
Well, firstly, I think it's only submariners who think they are elite. I'm not sure other people think so, but nevertheless, jokes apart, I think it's the environment we operate in. It is a challenging environment. It's not only about you're not in danger when you're at war, you're in danger every moment that you're under the sea. There is danger there. So I think it is that. It's the ability to work in a very close, confined environment. Each person is expected to know his job, so professionalism cannot be compromised. Even a small mistake by one particular crew member can take a whole submarine down. So you've got to be very sure that your crew is well trained and they all know their jobs. And everybody on submarines, there are no spare people. Every sailor on board and every officer on board has a special job to do, not only from their specialization perspective. For example, a navigator is not only a navigator, he's also got what we call an action post, where when he has to do something, he knows where he has to be. Even the cook on the submarine has an action post besides the cooking that he's doing. So submarines, every guy is first and foremost a submariner and then a specialist in whatever else he may be. So that's why I think the submarine arm has really set the benchmark for professionalism in the Navy, and leadership also in a way, because it's an environment where you cannot turn to anybody. You're on your own underwater. When you're operating in a fleet, there are ships around you. You have people. You'll never be on your own. But the moment a submarine dives, it's the captain and his crew till they surface again. So it's a challenging environment we operate in. It requires a very high degree of professionalism. And like we say in our standing orders, if you see on top, there's a little line which says submarines are safe until you forget they can be dangerous, which means be careful. You can't afford to make a mistake. So that's it. So
Well,
that I think is
absolutely.
what gives us what you all. Thank you for thinking we are elite, but that's what I think makes us different from the rest. And it's a voluntary arm. I don't know if your viewers know that joining the submarines is entirely voluntary. Nobody can be forced to join the submarines.
In fact, absolutely taking from what you said, Commodore Singh, and obviously it only reiterates what Arjun said, that submariners are definitely the elite ones. If we may say so, without offending anyone. But not many people would know that perhaps that submariners or submarines sail underwater for days and months at a stretch. And that brings me to the question, on a more personal or professional front, or however you may like to call it. How do you balance life on a submarine? Because these are challenges that perhaps nobody knows of. How do you manage those challenges? Rather, what are the challenges?
Look, any environment where you're out of your natural sort of habitat is a challenging environment. Now, in a submarine, firstly, those good old days of World War II submarines are over, that you dived, carried out your attack, and then again came back on surface. Now you dive the moment you leave harbor, and you surface only when you are entering harbor again, whatever number of days you may be at sea. It could be anything from 2 or 3 days to 45 days, 50 days, 60 days. And I'm only talking about conventional submarines at the moment. Nuclear submarines can stay underwater for longer and they are limited mainly by crew endurance. So are conventional submarines for that matter, as long as your ration is. So every submarine is designed for a certain amount of endurance in terms of days. So conventional submarines by and large are 45 to 60 days. Now 45 to 60 days, you've got 40, 50 people inside a steel cylinder with very cramped spaces. You don't even have a bunk that you can call your own. There are only two toilets in the entire submarine, and you're 40, 50, 60 people on board. Cooking is very restricted because you're underwater. You can't fry things and do things like that because you need to conserve your air. You've got to make sure your air is fresh, so you can't have a smell of fried oil in the circulating inside the submarine. You're in a totally unfamiliar environment. There is no day, there is no night. You can't look outside. It's one steel cylinder. You can't see anything except each other's faces for days on end. And at the end of it, if after 60 days you're still not sort of fighting with each other and clawing each other's eyes out, it speaks volumes for the people who man these submarines or the crew of the submarines, that we are able to live in very, very harmonious conditions despite this stressful environment. And I think the one of the reasons for that is that, contrary to what people think, what do you do underwater? And that's what many people ask us. A submarine crew is always kept very busy on board. we're always doing something. We're carrying out simulated attacks, or we're actually doing exercising with ships, or we're practicing drills in emergencies, things like that. Because if we don't do this, submarines have very little decision time. It has to be split-second decisions have to be taken. Whether you're going for attack, whether you've got an emergency on board, a fire or a flooding or something has happened, there is no time to react. There's no time to think, what am I supposed to do now? It should come instinctively to you because the situation develops very rapidly at sea. An accident can develop very rapidly, any incident. So we keep practicing this with our crew over and over again, so that when that time comes, when that one emergency happens, that sailor or that officer who has to react at that time does so instinctively. He has no time to think that what am I supposed to do now, which SOP do I have to follow, which book should I open to check. There's nothing like that. The orders have to come instantly, the actions have to come instantly. So that makes it very challenging on board. Otherwise, I think we all get used to life on board. So after, none of us really felt when we were out at sea for long periods that there was unnecessary strain on us or we were extremely tired. You realize you're tired when you come ashore after that. Then you realize, oh gosh, I was tired. I'm so filthy. I haven't had a bath for many days. And so things like that you realize when you come ashore again. But when you're on board, I have not come across a single instance in my 20 odd years of submarining when I was actually on submarines where we had an unpleasant incident or we had a fight break out between any two people or, people complaining about each other. That has never happened. The second very important thing is every submariner, like I said, is a professionally qualified guy. Everyone is fundamentally a submariner. So he not only is supposed to know his job, he is able to gauge very quickly the professional capability of another crew member because he knows whose job is what. And that is why you have to, as an officer, as a commanding officer, you have to be better than the best. Because you may be a commanding officer, everyone might sort of call you sir because they have to. But if you're going to command a submarine, you have to be able to command their respect. And that professional respect comes when they realize, oh, my commanding officer is definitely the best on board as far as submarining goes. Nobody knows more about the submarine than he does. And so we have the confidence to go to sea with him whenever he takes us and do whatever he tells us to do without batting an eyelid. So your weaknesses can get exposed very fast in a submarine because of the close environment we work in. So that's basically, I think, in a nutshell, life on board.
Right. And in fact, there is no option of storming out after a fight. Before Arjun takes on his next question, I would just, because I don't want to go to the next question before actually knowing if you've had any personal experience interesting enough for us to, tell everybody something that, that's really not known because we only know the very, very elite, very, very professional and highly challenging, as we just spoke, parts of a submariner's life inside that, submarine that you talked about. But are there any interesting anecdotes that you'd like to share before Arjun moves on?
That's a difficult one, Palak. But yeah, life has been very interesting. You had fabulous friends. In fact, we have such a close bonding even now, after so many years after retirement, that the Submarine Day, which we recently celebrated on 8th of December, wherever we are, we make it a point to go there and you meet your crew members and submarine mates of 40 years ago and 45 years ago, all now in their 60s and 70s. But, hugs are exchanged and you chit chat and you make it a point to be there. And not only us, even our families are like that. I mean, this time we were supposed to be out of town from the 6th to the 12th of December, but the Submarine Day was on the 7th, the Submarine Day get together. And my wife said to me, let's cancel our travel. We have to be here for the Submarine Day. How can we not be in Delhi with this on the Submarine Day party? So that sort of bonding is there, even many, many years after you moved on from submarines, because I think it's that close environment we worked in. Anecdotes, there are plenty. I mean, there's no shortage of anecdotes, both some not so funny at that time, but seem funny now. When we look back on it, we have a good laugh. Some positively dangerous situations which came up, but fortunately we are here to tell the tale. So obviously we were able to handle it. So I think from that point of view, there are many, but most of them are related to, if you were to ask any submariner would probably tell you that they're related mainly to, life on board, some interesting incident that happened while you were deployed somewhere. You probably had a fire or flooding emergency and, you reacted in a way which saved the submarine. When you say you reacted, I don't mean a person, but the submarine reacted in a way which saved the submarine from India's got a very good submarine track record. I know we had one accident in 2013 and a big deal was made out of it. But we've done a lot better than most other navies in the world. And that happened alongside for whatever reasons it happened at that time. But at sea, we are operating very old submarines. We're operating 35, 38-year-old submarines now. But fortunately, we are being able to keep them at sea. We're keeping them in fine fettle. Yeah, like for example, sometimes you tend to sort of allow yourself to get a little more relaxed on board. You become a little, maybe become complacent, and suddenly a situation arises where you've got to react instantly. And it's happened a couple of times with me also. Once we had a course, officers doing a course were with us, senior course. So most of the people were senior, very experienced submariners. And so because they were doing the course, they were on giving the orders and all. I was just sitting there as the commanding officer of the submarine, because ultimate responsibility rests with the commanding officer. And so, there were these experienced guys. So I was also, my attention must have been here or there looking at something, some dial or something. And suddenly I discovered that, we were not diving as fast as we should have been diving. And I asked that officer, so he said, no, we're okay, sir. So our depth gauge, which indicates depth, had for some reason malfunctioned, and nobody paid attention to the other indications that we have that the submarine is diving or not diving fast. Somehow everyone seemed to overlook it at that point of time. And we literally had somehow that sort of sixth sense or intuition not kicked in at that time, we'd probably have hit the ground at high speed, hit the seabed at high speed. But we were able to pull out of an emergency. That was a major emergency. I think that was the closest I ever came to a situation where we could have lost a submarine at sea, along with the entire crew. But anyway, we came out of it, continued what we were doing, and it was, just another day in the office at the end of it all. So that's one incident. There have been a few, but by and large, I think the fact that all submarines come back safely to harbor means you've been able to surmount them. So,
yes, and we really hope for that to happen forever and always. So maybe Arjun, you could go ahead with your next question.
Sure. So as we know, INS Sindhu Ghosh, which is a kilo class submarine, is going to be decommissioned in the a couple of coming days, if I'm not mistaken. So in that regard, from what I understand, you were also part of the commissioning crew of that submarine. So what are your thoughts on this significant event, sir?
It's bringing back a lot of memories. Nostalgia. Sindhu Ghosh is getting decommissioned on 19th of December. My wife and I are going to Bombay day after tomorrow on the 18th to be there for the decommissioning. I was the commissioning ASW officer of that submarine. We trained in Russia for a year and a half, manned that submarine, sailed it back to India. It was the first submarine of its type, the first kilo class submarine of its type to have been exported by Russia, by the Soviet Union then, not Russia. And so it evoked a lot of curiosity in the world. When we sailed out of the Soviet Union on our passage back to India, it was the first time that a kilo class submarine had ever been seen in the West. They had never seen a kilo class submarine till then. And they were all very intrigued as to what this new Russian submarine was all about, because it was fairly new, even the Russian fleet. It wasn't an old design. It was a very new design, and it was very modern. At that point of time, it had amazing technology. I mean, we had never seen technology like that on submarines. And so every day when we would be at sea, coming back to India, we came through, the Kattegat, the Atlantic, the Bay of Biscay, the Mediterranean, the Suez Canal, Red Sea, and Indian Ocean. And we crossed many countries en route, including the English Channel, where, England and France. We had ships and aircraft from every navy, every country we crossed, the naval ships and aircraft coming out to sea, circling us, taking videos of us, and we used to wave to them and they'd wave back at us. It was very interesting, but it was a very fascinating journey. So Sindhu Ghosh brings back a lot of memories. Firstly, of that 1 year, 1.5 years that we spent in the Soviet Union. We were a full crew. We had sailors, we had officers' families. Most of the officers were young officers. Some of us, like us, were bachelors. Some had just got married. They had small children. And, it's so nice to know that. And after that, of course, we all, got different submarines. So you met here, you met there, and you knew about them. But nobody really, you kept in touch with a few. You were not in touch with a few. But this time, because we're having a decommissioning, we managed to, or at least I coordinated with the Sindhu Ghosh crew, and I managed to get together 11 out of the 13 officers who were on board in the commissioning crew, who will be there in Bombay day after tomorrow. Some of them will be meeting after 35 years. And we're all looking forward to that. We made a WhatsApp group and we're talking to each other now, and we're looking forward to being there. And I was the second junior most officer at that time. I think they still treat me as the second junior most officer. AJ, can you do this? AJ, can you do that? And I said, look, I'm also now, I've also got on in years. So that sort of, in fact, two of the officers are no more. Our CO, Commander Verghese, was an outstanding CO. I mean, we were very lucky to have a professional like him as a commanding officer. Commander Verghese is no more. I contacted Mrs. Verghese. Mrs. Verghese heard about the decommissioning. She's agreed to come. She's also, fairly old now.
So this certainly talks about the brotherhood that is, formed
Yeah,
amongst the
it's very
submariners,
special.
I mean,
Very, very
officers and
special.
sailors alike who are underway in the submarine. But so, if I mean, I would like to add over here, if I'm not mistaken, I guess the Kilo class submarine is called as a black hole in the sea because at one point of time it was considered to be the quietest submarine in the world for a diesel electric submarine. So, sir, that said, thank you very much for your invaluable time. You shared a lot of information with us.
Pleasure talking to you. And I'd like to add, Arjun, that no matter, and of course, like Commodore said, we've met before. I have a lot of stories that he's shared with us and spoken to us, and no amount of time would be enough. It's just unfortunate that we have to end this discussion here. But really, I mean, I think we can just go on and on.
Oh,
No, thank you.
absolutely. Because, sir, there's a very popular saying that I came across, anything that happens under the sea stays under the sea. So, but today, sir has, literally opened up this, suspense regarding being a submariner for us and the thrills that come along with it. So, with that, we come to the end of today's episode. Thank you very much for tuning into today's episode of Maritime Conversations by Meluha. If you'd like to know more about our updates regarding the kind of work we do, don't forget to follow us on social media platforms. Until then, this is your host, Arjun and Palak. Thank you.
Well, thank you very
Thank you
much. That
so
was
much.
really a pleasure. I also rambled on quite a bit, but anyway, I enjoyed it.
So thank you very much. It was a pleasure, sir, talking to you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I really enjoyed being with you all. Thank you.